Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Baker.
Here.
Councilor Siomo.
Present.
Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Jackson.
Here.
Councilor LaMattina. Councilor Linehan.
Here.
Councilor McCarthy.
Here.
Councilor Murphy. Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Presley. She said, oh, present. Okay. Councilor Wu. Councilor Yancey. And Councilor Zachem. We have a quorum, Mr. President.
I've been informed by the clerk that a quorum is present. I would ask at this time for all councilors to please, and guests, to please rise while I invite Councilor Siomo to the podium to introduce today's clergy. After the invocation is delivered, I would ask all members and guests to remain standing as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilor Siomo. Councilor Siomo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gives me great pleasure to introduce someone that is no stranger to many of us in this chamber, Father Fitzgerald. Father Fitz, as he is affectionately called by most of us here. Father was appointed to St. Columbkille's Parish in 2013 by Cardinal O'Malley. Born in South Boston, lived in Dorchester and West Roxbury. He's led parishes in Peabody, Milton, and Wellesley before getting a promotion and coming to Brighton. He worked for the Department of Defense for 11 years. He attended Pope St. John 23rd Seminary in Weston as a seminarian for second career vocations because of his work with the Defense Department. He became an ordained priest in 1987 and served his flock extremely well for these many years. It gives me great pleasure to present to you Father Fitz.
Thank you, Councilor. Let us pray. Dear God, we stand before you conscious of our weakness, but aware that we are strengthened as we gather in your name. We pray in a special way this week for the soul of Mayor Thomas Menino and also for his family and friends who mourn his loss. Strengthen them these days with your presence. Enlighten the hearts of all in this council chamber. Give us light and strength to know your will. Guide us by your wisdom and support us by your power. As you desire justice for all, enable this council to uphold the rights of others. Let it be faithful to all that is true, and do not let it be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct the deliberations of this council and shine forth in all its proceedings. May the decisions of this council and all newly elected officials preserve peace, promote happiness, and continue to bring us the blessings of liberty and equality. May these decisions be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised to good and faithful servants, for you live and reign one God forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Father Fitz, for that inspiring message. At this time, Councilor Siomo will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. Yep. Thank you, Councilor Siomo, and thank you, Father Richard Fitzgerald. At this time, we generally have presentations, and I ask that we not do that this week after hearing the news of the passing of our beloved Mayor Thomas M. Menino. And at this time, Tom Menino started his elected career right here in this chamber. It was in 1983. It was in 1983. And so I'd like to give all the councilors who may choose an opportunity to say a few words, personal message, personal history in relationship with past president of the Boston City Council, a 10-year member of the Boston City Council, and a 20 years as mayor of the city of Boston. So I think it's only due that we start this off by acknowledging the gentleman from Hyde Park, District 5, District City Councilor Tim McCarthy.
President, very proud to have this seat, clearly. We've been talking about it for a while, so I'm going to keep it really, really light. He was my boss for 20 years, but 1997 or so, I had a Saturday night event. I was an advance guy, and he said to me on the way out, "What are you doing tomorrow morning?" I said, "Nothing." I knew it was probably 97 because I had a baby at the time. I said, "Probably daddy duties." He said, "Well, if you can get out of daddy duties, I've got an opening in my foursome over at Franklin Park." I said, "Oh, beautiful, you know." So any golfer will know an invite from the mayor is a green light. Like, you cannot say no to the mayor going golfing. So Maureen was like, "What am I supposed to say?" "No, of course, go ahead." So we played many, many times. And as much as he loved golf, he was awful. I mean awful. So he picks me up in front of the house. I happen to live on the same street. And we start shooting down Hyde Park Ave, and I'm looking at the speedometer, and he knows I'm looking at the speedometer. He looks at me with a straight face and says, "Who's going to pull me over? I'm the mayor." I said, "Oh, that is true." So we get to the golf course, and we're going along, and again, he's awful. Balls are flying everywhere. We get up to the 17th tee box at Franklin Park, and in front of the 17th tee box, I know Councilor Linehan knows it well, there's a river. So out of the bag, he pulls a brand new sleeve of Stratus. They just came out, brand new. He looks at it, he gives me the look, he gives everybody in the foursome the look, he pulls out the first ball. He gets up there, boom, he tops the ball goes about 30 feet ahead, right into the water. Without hesitation, he puts another ball out of his pocket. Now, a sleeve only has 3 balls, just so you know. Gets the next one, slams it, hook, hits across the river, off a tree, hits the oak, bounces back into the water. Without hesitation, the third ball comes out of his pocket. Tees it up. He now chili dips it, which means he hit the ground about 3 feet in front of the ball. The ball rolls slowly down the hill and into the water. He turns to me and he looks me right in the face, and I didn't know what to say to him. He looks at me and he goes, "These balls suck." And that is a good golf story, and that's probably the funniest line I've ever heard in a golf course.
Very good, Councilor McCarthy. At this time, we'll recognize the dean of our delegation, someone who entered this hall back in 1983, along with the good mayor and past council president Thomas Menino. Charles Jansen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for allowing us to remember Tom Menino and pay tribute to him and his many years of sacrifice. His 30 years in city government were indeed very sacrificial. I mean, he had to put up with me for all those years. I remember Tommy very fondly. It's no secret we didn't agree on 100% of the issues, but between 90 and 95% of the issues we did actually agree. Starting from my very first piece of legislation, which banned the distribution of free cigarette samples. And I know he, like most of my colleagues, were threatened if we passed that. We were accused by one of my colleagues, who's no longer with us either, of depriving him of their civil rights by not supporting the distribution of free cigarette samples. But what struck me about Tommy is that he joined me on other controversial issues as well. He was co-sponsor of the South African divestment legislation in 1984. While Nelson Mandela was still imprisoned, while the public opinion was very mixed as to whether this country should even get involved in what's going on in another nation some 10,000 miles away. But Tommy Menino stuck with us. We got the legislation passed. $2.5 million was withdrawn from businesses supporting the apartheid regime. And the rest is history. But on other issues, speaking of smoking, he also signed on legislation that created non-smoking areas in restaurants. The kicker was, however, he eventually voted against it when it came up for a final vote in these chambers. So I said, Tommy, what happened? You're a co-sponsor. So I saw the light. I never asked him to explain that. But what I do know is that Tommy more than redeemed himself after he became mayor, enacting the strongest tobacco control regulation anywhere in the United States of America. So not only did you have non-smoking areas in restaurants, there was no smoking in any restaurant or bar in the city of Boston because of Tom Menino. And I think that transformation, if you will, was somewhat indicative of a man who had love for everyone in the city of Boston. He was very fond to attend our annual book fair, not to see me, but to interact with the 2,000 families that would come out. And obviously, he will be sorely missed. When I think about Tommy now, I have to think about Brian Honan, who we lost, Dapper O'Neill, Joseph Tierney, Chris Iannella, Tony Creighton, Bruce Bowling, and now yet another colleague, Tom Menino, who served this body well. He strengthened the finances of the city. He established the Ways and Means Committee, and when he became mayor, did a great job stabilizing the city's finances. So, of course, my condolences go out to Angela, to Susan, and Tom Jr. and their grandchildren.
Thank you, Councilor Hanson. Councilor Steve Murphy.
And it was in 1971. And being a political junkie in my teens, I volunteered in a special election to help Joseph Timilty, who was running for the state Senate against the longtime rep in Hyde Park, Michael Paul Feeney. And Tom Menino ran the headquarters, the Timilty headquarters. And he was the strategist behind the Get Out the Vote campaign that we all did successfully for Joe Timilty. Joe Timilty won that seat by 300 votes. And I was 14. I had a bunch of friends that were involved in politics. And on Saturdays leading up to the election, we'd go to the headquarters. Tom Menino would take us in his car, drive us to a precinct, a certain corner, drop us off, and let us go leaflet an area and come back 2 hours later and pick us up. And in a lot of ways, he was like a big brother to me, and a big brother in politics at the time to me. And I remember that night, at about 5 o'clock, the night of the special election, Tom Menino called me and said, "We've got a list for you of doorbells you need to ring in Precinct 17. It was 5:15 at night. And he gave me a list of about, 80 or 90 doors in a precinct of people that were identified Timilty voters that had not voted. And I went out with colleagues and we rang all those doorbells and interrupted everybody's dinner and made general nuisances of ourselves. But most of those people came to the polls before 8 o'clock because of our ringing the bell. And Senator Timilty, or Joseph Timilty, became senator. It was March 21st of 1971 was that fight. And he won by 300 votes. And it was largely due to Tom Menino's get out the vote effort, at least in my mind. I was a precinct volunteer, and it was Tom Menino. And fast forward it to me getting elected, coming into the building that he was the mayor in, serving as the council president during the last 3 years of his mayoralty, and genuinely, day to day, being on a good list or bad list, and everybody knows what that is. And I was either when I was on the bad list, I was that bleeping Murphy, in the mayor's own words, or I was Murph the Surf or Stevie. And on October 14th, I went down to New York, to Franklin Roosevelt's townhouse, to see Tom Menino at his book signing down in New York, because I felt that somebody from sitting city government should be there. And I went down unannounced, and I'm really glad I did, because I connected or reconnected with Mayor Menino at a whole different level. And he basically told ex-Mayor Michael Bloomberg and all the people down there of his recipe for success, which we all know. He'd go out into the neighborhoods and listen and gain the trust of the people in the neighborhoods that he was leading, and bring that back here, and that gave him carte blanche to do what he needed to do to lead our city. So for me, my family, it's a guy that, I said I've had my ups and downs with, but no one can quarrel with the fact that Tom Menino gave his best over 30 years for the city. And I pray for Angela and for Susan and Tommy, because they shared him with us too much. We had too much of him and they not enough. And just as they were getting to spend time with him, he was taken quickly. And he's a great man and a great mayor. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor LaMartina.
Thank you. Where do I begin? First, I want to thank all of you for your support, encouragement the last couple of days. I probably would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for Tom Menino. I always wanted to run for city councilor, and when he was the city council president, I was thinking about running for Robert Trapolini, who was just elected to the Senate, and I became friends with Tom Menino when I started working in neighborhood services, and he was going to campaign for me when he was the city council president, and I decided not to do it at the time. It was not the right time for me to run for city council, so I decided not to do it. And then a few months later, he became the acting mayor, and I ran his campaign in East Boston. 20 years ago, East Boston was a different place for my friends at East Boston High School. There were a lot of abandoned buildings, vacant storefronts. We had the least open space in the city of Boston. And I look at East Boston today, 20 years later. It's a new place. And it was because of Tom Menino. Tom Menino, when I say we had the least open space, we had this a vacant railroad track in East Boston, which was full with litter, rodents, and it was really nasty. And today, because of Tom Menino, it's a beautiful greenway where you would go from Jeffries Point to Oregon Heights in East Boston. That was because of Tom Menino. He started East Boston Main Street when he became mayor in East Boston to improve our business district. As I said, there were a lot of vacant storefronts at the time. He built 3 early learning centers, and he knew, as all you know, early education was very important to the mayor. And we got one of those early learning centers in East Boston. I look at BHA Maverick Development, which is probably in really, really bad shape, not a good place for people, families to live. And it was the last Hope 6 project in Boston, and it happened at Maverick Square. And today, it's a beautiful neighborhood where families can really live in pride. As when that seat opened up, and I was almost not going to run for city council when Paul Scapicchio left the seat, because I had a nice job. I was working as director of operations for the transportation department, and I was making more money. And I didn't want to run because I was kind of nervous with my relationship with the mayor, because I heard stories in the past where the friction between the mayor and the city council, and I had that friendship with the mayor, and I didn't want to lose that friendship. And the mayor said, "No, you need to run for that seat. You always wanted to do it. This is your chance." And I was fortunate because he was a great mentor to me. If I didn't listen to him from day one of my campaign, I probably lost. Because we were having breakfast, Anthony Petrocelli, the great one, Albano, at Donna's in East Boston, talking about the campaign, and the mayor called me. "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm having breakfast." "You're having breakfast? Get on the phone right now. You call every single person you know in the North End." And I won the first race by 150 votes, and the difference was the North End. And it was because of him. I am so fortunate to have that relationship with the mayor. I am the luckiest guy in the world because I spent 20 years with him. I have so many good memories. And I did give him my blood, my sweat, and my tears. And I just want a fast story. As you know, when I was director of operation, I was in charge of sign shop. And the mayor got a letter from a little boy in Hyde Park about the geese that would cross the street. There's a pond over there. So the mayor wanted me to make a sign. So I made the sign, and we had this dedication to the sign. And so all the reporters left. And it was Councilor Casano, myself, and the mayor were just hanging out, talking. And then a local reporter came. So he goes, Sal, cover the sign. Let's do it for report. So Rob Masavo gave me 10 fingers, lifted me up from this wooden pole. I covered the sign. And as I was coming down the pole, a piece of wood jagged my skin and blood everywhere. And he's laughing. And so Rob had to take me to the hospital, and I got my stitches. And that's one of my great stories with the mayor when I say I gave him my blood, sweat, and tears. I will miss the mayor. He will live in my heart. And my condolences goes out to Angela and the family. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilor LaMattina. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, so many words far more poignant than my own have been said over the last week, and it's just, I consider myself incredibly lucky as someone who grew up in this city. I was 13 when Tom Menino was elected mayor, and I've just seen, as we all have, how much better this city is because of him. I mean, my God, we look at our districts, and we can all point to 10, 12, 20 concrete changes that have enhanced the quality of life. I was at the Parkway Youth Soccer final soccer game for the team I sponsor on Saturday, and I was telling these kids, you know, 5, 6 years old, that it was a landfill until 15 years ago when Tom Menino made it into 100 acres of beautiful open land and park space. Shortly after I was elected, I got a call from Mayor Menino. We were both parishioners of St. John's Chrysostom in West Roxbury, and he was wanted to put together a fundraiser to help raise money. They had a terrible parking lot that was just filled with potholes. They needed to raise a lot of money, so he called me up. We got my predecessor and friend John Tobin, who many of you know works in the comedy business. We were putting together a comedy night. And it was just one of these great experiences where I got to see the real duality of Tom Menino. He put together a committee. I was the youngest member of the committee. I think he was the second youngest member of the committee. And it was people, many of whom he showed extreme deference to and called Mr. and Mrs., people that knew him as a little boy, and would always lovingly bust his chops on a lot of issues. And it was just to see the guy who, in the day, I would see as the most powerful elected official in the state, if not New England, and then see a guy at night who would, you know, debate whether or not to have $1 or $5 raffle ticket. And that's who he was, and people have said that. The best lesson I think he can give all of us is to never forget where you came from. Many prior mayors were criticized, unfairly or not, for being too focused on the downtown or too focused on the neighborhoods. Tom Menino did both, and the city is far better because of it. He was also extraordinarily kind to me personally. I know all of us and all of our families. This past summer, my family had some tough news. My sister, Jill, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She's fighting it. She's tough. She's an incredible woman, but she was diagnosed at one hospital, a very good hospital, but wanted to get a second opinion. So no one in my family knew how you'd go about getting a second opinion, so I did what I often did when I didn't know what to do. I called Tom Menino. And a couple hours later, the office of the president of Dana-Farber called me, and the next day, the head of oncology called me, and the day after that, we got Jill an appointment for a second opinion at Dana-Farber, and that's where she's receiving treatment. And it was a week after that where the mayor called me just to check in on her and give me advice and see what else we needed. And in the midst of his own fight with this terrible disease, he was taking the time and the energy to check in on me and my family. And it was just an example of how his heart, you know, was as big as the city that he loved so well. So we are a better city and a better people because of him. And it was just an absolute pleasure and an honor to know him and to get to work with him over these last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Councilor Siomo.
Thank you, Mr. President. My time with Mayor Menino goes back 20 years. When he became mayor, I didn't know him from a hole in the wall till he became mayor. I was the director at the Veronica Smith Senior Center, and he came frequently courting the elderly, and they loved him like he was loved everywhere by everyone, as we know. But what really hit home to me this week, especially, was what Jack Connors said about Tom Menino, that it takes a tough man to make a tender chicken. And I have some tough stories about Tom Menino and interactions with him, and I have some tender ones, and I'll just share. The tough one first. As you know, I've been chairman of Ways and Means for the past 6 years, and was called into his office about a facilities issue with the Boston Public Schools, Charles. And Mike Contrepasis was in that same meeting, so it was just myself, Mayor, and Michael Contrepasis. And, you know, it started off, you know, slow, and then it just kept escalating and escalating, and it got very colorful, and the language was flying. And at one point, the mayor said, "All right, get out of here." And he walks me to the door, and he goes, "Okay, I'll talk to you later, kid." But Mike Contrepasis looked at us and said, and we both looked at it, we're Italian. This is how we communicate. But I knew that having that altercation with the mayor was just a way of us being passionate about the issues that we both cared about. And he knew that too. And then a real tender moment that I'll never forget is he sponsored a fundraiser several years ago. And he introduced me, and he said some very kind words about me. And I had been Ways and Means chair for a while, so I've had this special bond with him, as most people may or may not know. He was the chairman of Ways and Means for 5 consecutive years, and I just had my 6th consecutive year. So he was saying some very kind things about me and about my stewardship of the budget during very, very difficult times. But he reserved the majority of his introduction to my wife, Laura, and my family, and the sacrifices that he knows that family makes to support us as elected officials. And to this day, Laura always, it just touched her heart. And every time I have an interaction with Tom Menino, it was like, "How's the mayor doing? How's the mayor doing?" And she was very saddened by these events. And lastly, I feel blessed that I was able to go to his last public event at the Boston University book signing just a little more than 2 weeks ago now. And, you know, typical Tom Menino, there's hundreds of people in line. He's not looking very good. He was supposed to come up and say a few words. They decided just to leave him at the desk signing books. They started bringing people down. And his inscription to me, which I will cherish forever, was, "Dear Mark, to the second best Ways and Means chair, keep the number going. Tom, best wishes, Tom Menino." And lastly, when you think of Tom Menino, we all know how he's transformed, his part in transforming Boston. It will remind me, especially as we enter into the holiday season, one of my favorite movies, It's a Wonderful Life. And Tom Menino, the George Bailey of Boston, if he didn't touch every single person in this city in some way over his career, that's quite a movie. And I will miss him dearly. And again, I want to thank Angela, Susan, Tommy, and the family for sharing with us all these years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Siomo. I give any other councilor an opportunity to say a few words if they should, and because I plan to close. So, Councilor Jackson.
Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. President. I also want to first thank Angela, Susan, and Tommy Jr. As each and every one of us know, when we're doing this work, we're oftentimes not at home. And I'm not even 4 years into this job. So to imagine what that must have been like for 30 years to share someone for 20 years as a mayor who never turned off. So I just want to thank them and their family for sharing him with us. Many of you experienced a funny moment when I got sworn in. I want to thank Councilor Murphy, who was City Councilor President at the time, who allowed me to have a 3-hour coronation. That's actually what you told me that day. What is this? What is this? What are you doing? Okay. And we practiced everything that day. We were at Hibernian Hall. We probably would have got shut down because it only fits 500 people. There were 700 people in the room. And got to get up there, give my little speech. And my mom was there. She was so proud. Put my hand on the Bible and raised my hand. The mayor said, say aye and your name. The whole audience said aye and their name. And then the scariest thing happened to me. I realized that we did not practice the oath. And Mayor Menino read the first 2 lines. He said, repeat after me. And again, we all normally get sworn in together. I leaned over to him and I just lost it. I just said, huh? What'd you say? Because I had no idea what he said. And in a very clear voice, he said, if you are unable to take your oath, then we will call for another special election and find a city councilor who will who will learn how to take the oath. The first day I came into this building as a councilor, and I do want to thank Councilor Murphy, who walked me through a lot at the time, stuff I wasn't even thinking of. But I got a call from the mayor's office, and he had me bring my whole staff to his office. And he spent an hour with us, telling us about service and simply taking care of people, and they'll take care of you. The politics side, and he talked to me about this being an echo chamber in this building, things that are huge in City Hall, and it's interesting that it's built this way. Things that are huge in City Hall mean literally nothing to a lot of folks out on the street. What means something to them is, as everyone knows, he was called the urban mechanic, those things that you pick up the phone and their ability to connect with government. Not transferring and putting them off, even if they're at the wrong level of government, but making sure that there's follow through in that connection. The first hard time, as Mark put it, that I had with the governor, with the mayor, was when I was about to support Councilor Yancey's resolution for 300 street workers. And I got a call from the mayor, and before I could pick up the phone fully, it just started talking and moving. This is a PG-13 stream, so we won't say what was said to me on the other end. And I had to end the conversation with, Mayor, you realize this is a resolution, correct? A non-binding resolution. And then he hung up on me. That was an extreme, but the other extreme is that it seemed like the mayor literally knew everything. And so he found out that my first year here, I went to see my mom for Thanksgiving, but I was here for Christmas. And so as he was pulling in one day, he said, "What are you doing for Christmas?" I said, "Well, I'm going to just be hanging out." "Well, come over to my house." And so the weirdest thing happened that day. So I went to his house, and I'm thinking that there's a big, huge group of people that are going to be there. And I got into his kitchen, and it was him and Angela and 2 of their friends. And I spent time with the mayor for a couple hours. And it just, for me, meant a whole lot to think that someone who has done this job for so long, for someone who cares about the city and has all of that weight on their shoulders, would, 1, take the time to find out what's going on in my life, but 2, take the time to open up his kitchen. So I think for me, when I think about public service and that standard, and to keep it at the highest standard, knowing how hard he worked, I think it's a challenge for all of us. And I don't think it's a challenge only for all of us in this room. I think it's a challenge for everyone in the city to do something that will make it better for those folks who are in your neighborhood, your community, and in your city. And so, I want to thank the family, and I just want to thank the mayor for taking a little bit of time to invest in a kid from Roxbury. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Wu.
It's still very, very surreal walking into this building, and I think for me, as for many of us, for a very long time, City Hall especially will be infused with Mayor Menino's spirit. I was lucky, as with so many people, to get my start under his guidance. I think I've been thinking a lot this last week about my first week in City Hall on the 5th floor, and my first time really seeing him up close. I was a law student and was there as a policy fellow to do some projects for the summer, and it must have been my second or third day on the 5th floor. I hadn't met the mayor yet, and someone came by and said, Mayor Menino would like you to sit in on a meeting in his office this afternoon. I said, okay. I went that afternoon, and there were maybe a dozen people gathered around his table, folks from the BRA, developers, some folks from the school department. It was a meeting about the Ferdinand building. And he asked for an update from folks on how it was going. And then it got very loud very quickly. He was not happy with how fast, or rather how slow things were going. And he started pounding his table on the fist and yelling and saying, forget about these budgets. Forget about all the months that you think you need. This is about the people. Think about the people that this building will help, the businesses that it will bring to Dudley Square. And as with Councilor Siomo's meeting, at the end, he just yelled, get out of here. And everybody sort of scurried out, and some folks kind of looked at me because they knew I was new, and they said, welcome to City Hall. And then I went back to my desk down the hall, and I was going back to filling out my orientation paperwork and all that, and I looked up, and the mayor was standing right there. About 5 minutes later, he came down. He said, hey, kid, how'd I do? And he had this big grin on his face. And he wanted me to know that, I think as he wanted everyone who worked for him and worked in this building to know that it was about the people, and that is our focus for every mission. And he wanted me to know that he wasn't a bad guy, that he had this whole thing had sort of been an act, and that's what he was getting ready to do, is to call these folks in, to hold them accountable to the timelines that would best serve residents in the neighborhoods. And for so much of my time there on the 5th floor, that was what it came down to. I remember we sometimes would have to not trick him, but kind of delay the truth sometimes if we were pushing for a certain project. And I really wanted food trucks to happen in the city, and so there was a day when we got it on his schedule to take Mayor Menino down to Dewey Square to taste Clover food trucks food. And he walked up to the front of the line. And they told him some of the things that they had. He ordered a BLT, loved it, came back, and we said, okay, let's do something about this. He only found out later that it was a soy BLT, a vegetarian. And he was like, what? I don't think he would have had it in the first place if we had told him it was vegetarian. And then I think one of the most poignant memories that I have is just something very small. Sometimes he would, if you were just wandering around the hall at the end of the day, late on a Friday or another day, and he'd be one of the last people there, he would call you in and just say, "What are you working on?" And I'd talk about different policies, different memos that I was writing. And one day there had been a woman that showed up at the front of the mayor's office. She only spoke Chinese, and she was very, very upset. She had some parking tickets that were supposed to be dismissed, but nobody could understand her, so she had been sent to all different departments. And finally, I was speaking Mandarin to her and got her down to the second floor. And I just mentioned it briefly to him that is something that had happened today. And that was what he wanted to hear about. He wanted to hear about which departments he had gone to and how we had helped her. And did we, at the end, make sure that she got her parking tickets taken care of. And it was just really striking to me that, for a man who was overseeing so much throughout the city, so many big things, so many huge policy initiatives, he always seemed to care most about the people that were coming to this building and dealing with city government, who he would never meet and they would never get to see him, but he wanted to know that they were taken care of, that maybe that one time that they came in contact with the city, that we were there for them. So I join everyone in offering my condolences to the Menino family and to all the residents of Boston, everyone who knew him and loved him.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Councilor Zachem.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief, as I unfortunately did not have the opportunity to work with Mayor Menino in this building, like I believe probably everyone else in this body. But his work, his attention to detail in every part of this city and to every person, whether they were, a big developer or someone in the neighborhoods, was certainly an inspiration to me in seeking this office and in the work I do here every day. I do have a very brief story about my younger sister, Shari, actually, who I think many of you know, maybe not, uses a wheelchair. And a few years ago, on a snowy winter evening, he was out with some friends trying to hail a taxi cab to get home, and was passed by over and over again, which is unfortunately a common occurrence in the city and and across this country. Folks not drivers not wanting to stop and deal with the extra time or inconvenience of an individual in a wheelchair. And she is, as I know, growing up, she is a quite vocal young lady, and certainly made this story known and reached out to friends and family saying, this is unacceptable, this happened to me. Luckily, I was with other friends, but she was just as much concerned, I think, about other folks in a similar situation who may not have been, with my other sister who was with her, with their friends, and sort of been stranded out there. And I don't know how it ended up happening, but Mayor Menino sat down with her, I think on more than one occasion on this issue, and brought in, the police captain who at the time was commanding the Hackney unit, making sure that, all the relevant city department heads were in those meetings and saying, this may be a very small percentage of the population of the city of Boston, but this is an issue that is affecting people, that is making their lives harder when it really shouldn't be a problem at all. And I think that, like many of the other stories that have been shared here today and at the beautiful remembrances of the past week, struck me at the time, which was long before I'd even thought I might be sitting here on this body, as just the right thing to do, and sort of awed me with that, again, that attention to detail and that true caring about everyone and making sure that the city worked for everyone. So, like I said, I wish I did have the opportunity to work with him in this building, but certainly an inspiration to me and I think many of us, and also offer my condolences to his family who gave so much of him and themselves to this city. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Zachem. Councilor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tumultuous, rocky, strained at best probably would be words that would be used to describe my relationship with Mayor Menino. I never really experienced what Murph the Surf over there had with the highs and lows. Mine were mostly lows and middle to the road. But with that being said, there's no way to deny what Mayor Menino did for the city, his commitment to the people of the city, the commitment to the neighborhoods, the sacrifice that his family went through, especially Angela being his wife. I know what my wife gives me when I go home at night. So with that, I have to thank his wife, his family. The reality is there's grandchildren without a papa. His wife is without someone that she adores and took great strength from. So I thank him for his commitment. I thank him for what he did for this city. And, a quick story. My campaign was a little bit, it was a long one, and I was on the other side of the administration. So unlike Councilor O'Malley, who received a call probably the next day, it was 6 months before the mayor and I had spoken. It was kind of a Mexican standoff. I wouldn't call him, he wouldn't call me. It was we're probably similar maybe, I don't know. So when I finally said, all right, I'll give him a call, I called, I went over and sat in the office, and he says, so kid, what do you want to talk about? I said, let's talk about the race. He said, no, let's not talk about that. New chapter, new game, new pages. Let's make a new history. So that, the tough exterior knew there was something down there that he had a heart and that he cared for everybody. And again, I thank him for his commitment, and you have to pay him his due respect. They were masterful in what they did, and I appreciate him for that. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councilor Baker. Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Frank, you're not alone, so I'm going to give you a big hug after the session. I'm probably uniquely situated in the fact that I served 10 years of his 20 years as mayor, served as council president for 5, and also had the opportunity to run against him in 2009. And probably hung up on me more than anyone, maybe second to Murphy. But I can tell you he's thrown me out of his office more than he's thrown anyone out of his office. But I know that he appreciated my work ethic, my passion for helping people. And when we had differences of opinion, I know he appreciated the honesty. And that was the relationship that we had. I can tell you that I had a front row seat and spent a lot of time with him at ribbon cuttings, at galas, as head table guests, in his office. What I learned the most from the mayor is how to truly be a citywide city councilor and to not take any neighborhood for granted. What I admired most about the mayor is someone that would take some knocks regarding, either intellect or educational capacity or even articulation, that he probably made some of the more significant and most important decisions for our city, and he did it quickly. Where most in our business would be maybe putting focus groups together or doing a poll or bouncing it off close advisors. He would spend time at events, and I oftentimes would see him sort of drift off, and he'd just talk to a regular Joe, a regular person there, and ask him what's going on. I think that was really sort of the fuel that kind of feeded, his knowledge about what was going on in the community and helped shape decisions he made and also helped affect policy for our city. And I think also what I remember the most was how excited he got when he was talking about his grandchildren and how oftentimes they would ride along on the weekends at different events across the city and oftentimes would ask you how your family. He was always asking for my mother and father, always asking for my wife and kids. And I remember that he would say, this business consumes a lot of your time. Make sure you make time for your family. Make sure you get to those games. Go to those school events, because he said before you know it, they're going to be gone and they're not going to want to hang around with you anymore. And so that always stuck out with me, that there's a personal side. As his work ethic was probably second to none. Again, front row seat running against him. He was a political animal. Just when you thought you had an event all to yourself, I'd be ready to leave and he would walk in. Or thinking that I'm going to have the event to myself, I would walk in, he would already be there. I mean, the schedule he kept was clearly set the barometer in terms of how to really do the job effectively and how to really stay in touch with people. So for that, I'll leave you with a brief comment that we had after our election when we sat down to kind of break bread and let bygones be bygones. And he said, "Kid, you worked hard and you worked smart." And he said, "But you gave my people fits." He said, "I know you ruined some of their summers, but," he said, "it was a good exercise for them." He said, "It helps keep my team fresh." He says, "Also helps me identify and weed out the fakers." And he knew any neighborhood he went to, he knew the people that he could count on. He knew the people that he could trust. He knew the people that would step up and honor their word and deliver. And he also knew people that weren't as sincere or may have been looking for something else other than trying to help the city or to help their neighbors. And so with that, on behalf of the entire Flaherty family, he's known the Flahertys before I was even born, going back with my father and my Uncle Jimmy. The Flahertys clearly have fond memories of the mayor and his family, and our thoughts and prayers are with Angela and Susan, Tommy, and their grandchildren. And our hope is that we can carry part of that legacy and also recognize that it's not about anybody in this chamber, and it's not about our personal or political differences. It's about helping the people that elected us. It's about helping the people that we serve, and that's all the people of Boston. And that was one of the things he always would part, that he wasn't just a mayor for some of the people, he was a mayor for all of the people. And that's our responsibility as district and at-large council, is that we have a job and role and responsibility to effectively advocate for those that can't advocate for themselves or who are in need of help, and that's our primary focus. And that's what I'd probably take away the most from his tenure as our mayor, but also for those that serve with him on the council. Probably remember fondly that I think his nickname was Tom the Tank, driven by the fact of his passion for getting the job done, helping people, and seeing that end result. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to offer some words, and again, want to let Angela and Susan and Tommy and the family know that the Flahertys are thinking of them during this difficult time. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
President.
you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Presley.
Michelle used the word surreal. I think that's the most appropriate. It still is a huge disconnect. I think it's safe to say that we all could assume that in old age he would move more slowly, and then in the throes of battling a terminal illness, move even slower. But that none of us could ever imagine that he would be still and at rest. I had lunch with the mayor at Boston University over the summer, and he was lamenting, well, let me be honest, he was being quite critical of the pace of academia and lambasting folks over at Boston University for wanting to take summers off or not work Fridays. It really just belied all sense in his mind as someone who was so tireless, an incredible work ethic, never complacent, never idle, never still. He was also, though he did keep a lot of his cards close to the vest, so to speak, he was very transparent. The first lesson that I learned when I joined the council, I wanted to sort of establish some rules of engagement, if you will, because I had a lot of things on my mind that I was hoping to work on. And so I reached out, and what he said is, listen, kid, and I'm glad to know he called everyone that, because I used to take issue with that, but I know it's a term of endearment, and he called everyone kid. I'm 40 years old. I've been doing this, for over 20 years, but it was endearing. And he said, listen, kid, we're going to disagree. I just don't want any surprises. And so, fair enough, and I would pick up the phone and say, so tomorrow I'm going to light you up. And I just wanted to let you know, but I'll do it very respectfully. And so he appreciated that transparency. The other thing is that I got a lot of pushback about, and this might be hard to believe, but when I made the decision to run for council and I said I was running to save girls, a lot of people were dismissive of that and tried to marginalize that agenda and said, that's not the job of a city councilor. Go run a nonprofit. You can't win citywide and run on a platform of saving girls. And Tom Menino was one of the very first people who really got it. And he said, girls and women need a champion, and you go and be that champion. I have to commend him. He established the BCYF Annual Girls Summit, which I attended faithfully well before I joined this body, because he recognized that it was really important that we have gender-specific and responsive programming and strategies, and that when it came to youth development and prevention programs and intervention programs, that, girls were really being left behind. So I want to commend him for that. He'll always be the public health mayor to me. Very progressive public health commission in partnership and leadership with Barbara Ferrer, one of the first cities in the country to name violence as a public health issue, or the mayor's move to remove soda from our schools. So many progressive values and policies in the public health space. Also, his final petition that he signed as acting mayor was the liquor license home rule petition that this body passed, decisively. That was his last act as mayor. And now we stand here seeing liquor license reform because of an effort born out of this, that our mayor, mandated and sent that message to the State House, and in partnership with you, a law that was hurting our city for over 100 years. We now have real reform in that space. But I just want to say a few things personally. You all know my mother was my shero, my bedrock, my best friend. And so the best way to honor me is to honor my mother. And he was an incredible support. I don't know that we've talked enough about the man of faith that he was. He did know God, and we spoke openly about our faith. And we had prayed, and he was an incredible support while my mother was in the throes of her cancer battle. And when she did transition, he made sure that my mother, in my faith tradition, we call it a homegoing, that she had a homegoing that was befitting of a queen. Police detail, and so I'll never forget that, because he honored the most important person in the world to me, and really gave her a royal send off. And he and Angela came and stayed the whole time. And it's no secret that many of my life experiences and struggles have directly informed my policy agenda, especially around trauma and violence and things like that. And so, I've shared a lot of hardship about my life and how it informs my service. And so when the mayor heard that I was engaged, he was so happy. I got engaged Columbus Day weekend. It was the same weekend as the parade. And the mayor was like a giddy, beaming grandfather because he felt that I had invited the city into so much of my hurt. And he was thrilled that I had something to celebrate, and so happy that I was going to be starting my own family. And he kept asking me to show off the ring and everything like that. And so when he finally met my fiance, everyone was saying to my fiance, "Oh, you're a lucky guy. You've got a great gal there." And when he met the mayor said, "Good luck, guy." And he just kind of rolled his eyes and patted Conan on the back, and Conan said, "Finally, someone is telling the truth. This woman is not easy." So, but always, just ready for a good-natured ribbing. And so, in that regard. So the final thing I'll say is that, there can be no public accolades without a great personal sacrifice. And everyone has spoken about the sacrifices the mayor made. And if we're just being honest, the cumulative toll and impact the job took on his body, and his family served right there along with him. But in striving to improve the quality of life of the every man and every woman, your own quality of life and your own family can completely tumble. It's one of the hypocrisies of this work that people will be fighting to make other people's families better, and their own family can be falling apart all around them. So I really think his enduring legacy and a testament to the man of faith and family that he is how incredible that family is. And his grandchildren, and he never lost sight of the fact that that was really his greatest work and the most important thing. So well done, good and faithful servant, and rest in peace.
Thank you, Council Presley. And thank all of you councilors for taking the time to show a little insight and connection to an individual who had served our city for so many years, 30 years as an elected, and an entire lifetime, whether it be in his community or at his church with his family. It was 1983 when he was elected so that in 84 he could be the District 5 City Council. And we're fortunate that we have somebody here who can tell us about that time and share that with us. There was no district city councilors before that. There were 9 at large. And so they created the mold of which we've all, who are district city councilors, have fallen into. He took that mold and he was the district city councilor in his time and place, because he cared as much as you can possibly care about a job. He worked as hard as you can possibly work over a job, all in trying to produce for his constituents. And then he took that district city council position and model, and he overlaid it on his good fortune as being president when a mayor left. And he took that role of constituent service, direct interaction, building, growing, helping everybody possible that councilors do, and change the model for how you'd be a successful mayor in the city of Boston. I mean, our mayor, Martin Walsh, has his hands full to try and fill the shoes of someone who has given so much for so long in that way. So I first met Tom Menino in '87 when he was a district city councilor. And I worked with him And then he became mayor, and I worked for him. And then I got elected, and I worked with him again. And it was easier to work for him than with him. But it was all good. It was all really good. Tom Menino it's been articulated here that you really don't want to be on his bad side. But I had a dad who was loud. He was a little guy, but he was loud. And so when he was frustrated, we would hear it. And so when you have a job as big as Tom Menino had, you can get frustrated a lot. So those who are in the bullpen, those who are doing the work, heard it. But the people we served didn't. I was amazed at how tough it could be in this place and how much work you could get done and how everybody outside the building thought, wow, this is terrific. And like, it was like not seeing how the sausage is made, just enjoying the taste. He won every election by enormous amounts because of his dedication and his desire to win and to be on the top. He turned over every he knocked every door and he turned over every leaf that he could to make sure that he won big. Councilor Flaherty is probably who came the closest in any election he ever had. And so it just showed that it was who the man was. I got to know the family through his mayoral election. I ran Dorchester Farm in his first bid to be mayor. I ran other neighborhoods. I ran South Boston Farm, and thought he was involved in every election that ever occurred, whether it was President of the United States or Clerk of Suffolk Court. He just constantly was involved with elections. So if you were going to work and be with Tom Menino, you had to work as hard. Well, no one could work as hard, but you'd have to work at that pace, with that fervor, and with that passion. So to him, to his family, I'm extremely grateful for all those years. My daughter's 24. There was only one mayor until Marty Walsh got elected, and it was Tom Menino. And he accepted all of us, no matter what neighborhood you were from, as if you were part of his family. So, as all of you have, I extend my condolences, and I have personally. I'm honored that I was part of an honor guard that actually was seated beside the casket for over an hour at his service. I'm honored that I could be the president of the city council, the position that he held, and to be in that position through his last event. It was amazing. Thank you to the Meninos, to Angela, to Susan, Tom, and all the grandkids. On behalf of the entire council, we are there for you. We'll continue to work for the city of Boston and for you, Tom Menino's family. Thank you. We'll move on, Madam Clerk. If there are no corrections to be made, the minutes of last week's meetings will stand approved. Seeing and hearing no objections, the minutes are so approved. Madam Clerk, communications from His Honor the Mayor.
Docket number 1680, message and order authorizing the police commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $1,738,847.37 from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Senator Charles E. Shannon, Jr., Community Safety Initiative Grant, for the purpose of supporting strategies to address youth, gang, and gun violence.
Docket 1680 will be assigned to the Committee on Public Safety.
Docket 1681, message and order authorizing the Commission on Affairs of the Elderly to apply for, accept, and expend a renewal grant of $825,000 from the Boston Health Commission for the operation of the Prevention and Wellness Trust Fund.
Docket 1681 be assigned to the Committee on Healthy Women, Families, and Communities.
Docket number 1682, message and order authorizing the Boston Fair Housing Commission to accept and expend the FY14 U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Fair Housing Assistance Program grant funds awarded to the Boston Fair Housing Commission. This request for authorization to accept and expend grants relates to payment for the Commission's investigatory work under the Fair Housing Assistance Partnership Agreement, of which $104,282 has been received and $32,000 is pending, for a total of $136,782.
Docket 1682 will be assigned to the Committee on Housing.
Docket number, I'm sorry.
1683, Madam.
I'm sorry. Docket number 1683, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $10,000 from the FY13 National Institute of Justice, Social Science, Research, and Forensic Science passed through the University of Illinois Champaign for the purpose of support analysis, data collection, and reporting by the Boston Police Department's Crime Lab and Office of Research and Development.
Councilor Murphy moves suspension and passage of docket 1683. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1683 has been passed.
Docket number 1684, message and order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend a grant of $6,925 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for FY14 Development Assistance Program to reimburse the Boston Fair Housing Commission for housing HUD's 2014 Regional Fair Conference.
Councilor Baker moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1684. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 1684 has been passed.
Would you like me to read all?
Yeah, Madam Clerk, if you could please read the next three, and then I'll suspend and pass all.
Thank you, Mr. President. Docket number 1685, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $5,000 from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's National Violent Death Reporting Data System for the purposes of collecting and reporting data. Docket number 1686, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend funds received from a private donation in the amount of $3,560 for the Bears in Blue. This program would allow the purchase of teddy bears to be distributed by the Boston police offices to children throughout the City of Boston. Docket number 1687, message and order authorizing the Police Commissioner to accept and expend a grant of $1,500 from the Target Corporation. The funds will support the 2014 Heroes and Helpers event that pairs Boston police officers with underprivileged youth who are given $50 gift cards to spend at Target stores.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor Murphy moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1685. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 1685 has been passed. Councilor Murphy moves suspension of the rules and passage of 1688. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1686 has been passed. And Councilor Murphy moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1687. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And docket 1687 has been passed.
Docket number 1688, message and order for confirmation on the appointment of Tyrone Kindle, Jr. as an alternate member of the Board of Appeal for a term expiring October 1st, 2016.
Docket 1688 will be assigned to the Committee on Economic Development, Planning, and Labor. Reports of public offices and others.
Docket number 1689, notice was received from the Mayor of the appointment of Yvonne New as a member of the Boston Cultural Council.
Docket 1689.
You want me to read?
Yeah, could you read the next through 1701, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Docket number 1690, notice was received from the Mayor of the appointment of Sue Darling Sullivan a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1691, notices received from the mayor of the appointment of Yaritza Pina as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1692, notices received from the mayor of the appointment of Tory Bullock as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1693, notices received from the mayor of the appointment of Stephanie James as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1694, notices received from the mayor for the appointment of Sarah Edry as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1695, notices received from the mayor of the appointment of Priscilla Roja as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1696, notices received from the mayor of the appointment of Nia Grace as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1697, notices received from the mayor of the appointment of Derek Lumpkins as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1698, notices received from the mayor of the appointment of Aubrey Carrion Agrula as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1699, notices received from the mayor of the appointment of Abigail Norman as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. Docket number 1700, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Chica Offerum as a member of the Boston Cultural Council. And docket number 1701, notice was received from the mayor of the appointment of Lisa Bello as a member of the Boston Cultural Council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Docket 1689 through 1701 will be placed on file. Motions, orders, and resolutions.
Docket number 1702, Councilor McCarthy offered the following order for hearing regarding excise tax collection procedures.
Councilor McCarthy, you have the floor on 1702.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The reason for this order is to explain the process of collecting delinquent excise taxes through the collection agency, Kelly Ryan and Associates, under the Mass General Law. The agency, under certain circumstances, is allowed to go back into a person's record and collect unpaid taxes they find. In many circumstances, these taxes, these taxes have been outstanding for 10, 20, and even 30 years. If the taxes are not paid, including the fines, the person's driver's license can be suspended. This is the only indication to the person that the debt was ever outstanding. There is no notification in the entire span of time. I've had several constituents that have come into my office telling me horror stories of demand notices. One from 1988. This gentleman's demand notice was for $1,784.29. In 1988, that excise bill was $100. That's $100 times interest for $1,784.29. He's now lost his license, and as a senior, a veteran, certainly can't write a check for $1,784.29. And the appeals process is a joke. Because of this, he can't get his license. He's been driving without a license, endangering himself and others. But he needs to go to the hospital. He needs to go to doctor's appointments. He needs to pick up prescriptions, all the things we do on a daily basis. This hearing is to get to the bottom of why our neighbors are getting hammered with bloated bills from the excise taxes that they may or may not even have paid years ago. The excise people have stated that if they come up with a canceled check, they can waive some fees, not all, some fees. I think there's only one person on the planet who probably has a check from 1988 that has been canceled. It's probably my father-in-law, but that might be the only one. And we've had 3-4 cases coming in at a time, and it's the same continuing thing. I'd like to have this hearing to discuss the appeals process to protect our neighbors and our constituents. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Docket 1702 will be assigned to the committee. There's no lights. Okay. I know, but even someone has to press a light. Okay. Thank you.
Please add my name.
Please add Councilor Baker's name, Councilor Siomo's name, Councilor Flaherty's name, Councilor Murphy's name, Councilor O'Malley's name, Councilor Presley's name, Councilor Wu's name, Councilor Yancey's name, and Councilor Zakin. Please add Councilor LaMartina's name and Councilor Jackson's name. And please add the chair's name. Docket 1702 will be assigned to the Committee on Ways and Means.
Docket number 1703, Councilor Jackson and Presley offer the following order for a hearing to discuss the Boston Public Schools proposed pepper spray policy.
Chair recognizes Councilor Jackson on docket 1703.
Mr. President, I rise to bring to attention to my colleagues something that I found out pretty hastily. On a Friday, there were a series of meetings that were announced for the following week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the following week. And these hearings were to discuss the implementation of the use of pepper spray in Boston Public Schools. Actually, not necessarily use of, that the police officers who were in Boston Public Schools would be allowed to carry pepper spray. I was alarmed. I contacted Councilor Presley and just asked, had you heard anything about this? We were told that in 2006, as part of the collective bargaining agreement, that a policy was committed to in that collective bargaining agreement, that a policy was committed to. And so, you know, at a time when we think about issues of asthma, I know in Roxbury, in my district, we have 5 times the asthma rate of the city, actually of the state of Massachusetts. And we think about the great work that has gone on in the Boston Public Schools of going from 450 assaults to 150 assaults last year. We're moving in the right direction. So for me, this makes no sense to introduce an agent that is only going to escalate a situation. In addition, when we really think about it, these are our children. And in fact, with doing a little research, we don't use, in the state of Massachusetts, we don't use pepper spray in DYS lockup facilities. So I don't know why we would even think of or broach this issue of using such an agent in the Boston Public Schools at a time when the schools are actually safer than we've ever seen in the past. I do want to note that I did receive a call from the superintendent this morning, letting me know that they would be not moving forward with this. But I think it's important that the city council have its voice heard. I think it's important that the city council really think about these issues. And no, we're not the school committee, but you know what? Our job is to take care of every single young person and not so young person in the city of Boston. And I think it is important that we have our voice heard about what should happen. And in addition, I want to remind folks that we actually have fiduciary responsibility to the city. And we would actually have approved a budget that would be purchasing something like this. And so I think it's important that the council weighs in on this matter. This is, to me, something that the superintendent should say. The policy is very simple. We do not give pepper spray to police officers in the Boston Public Schools. That's what the policy should be. And I look forward, and in my conversation with him, there was a good indication that they would not be moving forward with this. But again, I think the council has to serve a watchdog role when it comes to ill-advised policies like this, where the school department would be spending dollars that we approved in the last budget to possibly put our young people in harm's way. So I wanted to bring this forward. I think it's important and timely that we bring this forward. And time again, the council has been able to chime in on matters such as this so that we have the safety and well-being of our young people. And I think that's all of our goal, and that's why I brought this forward. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Presley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councilor Jackson, for your partnership on this. When I first learned about this, it was in an email sent to my office, and I was immediately alarmed and immediately opposed. But wanting to be fair and see the process bear out, I decided, and Councilor Jackson also did attend, to participate in some of the community meetings, which were low in attendance, and that had nothing to do with concern or parental engagement. It had everything to do with not knowing. And this has been my challenge with Boston Public Schools. I do not want us to have meetings that are simply an exercise, a pro forma exercise where there is an attempt with which to engage people, and then when people don't show up, to advance a policy and to say no one showed up. People didn't know about it. And so this is why we began to move towards having a public hearing where we could create a space where parents and students could express how they feel about this policy. Now, I did participate in 2 meetings. Not one person endorsed this policy. I do not want our schools to be a police state. We know that there are disparities in discipline. And I also just want to say that I appreciate the good work of our school police. They have done an excellent job in keeping the peace. And as the chairman of the Education Committee articulates, in reducing incidents. Doesn't mean we're without incident, but more often than not, those are now outliers. They are anomalies. If we really want our school communities to be places that are safe, this is about fostering trust between students and school police. And to arm school police with pepper spray does not endear or foster that trust. School police are community police. They have a very close relationship with the student body. And I think that students would be less inclined to approach a school police officer knowing that they are carrying pepper spray. I would also like to say I think it is a risk to school police. What if a student were to get a hold of pepper spray? How do they keep this contained and in a way that it doesn't pose a threat? If it were to be used, it isn't a perfect science. As the chair of the Education Committee points out, that asthma rates are much greater in the city of Boston and in particular in communities of color. It isn't an exact science. You can go to spray one person and spray 5 more. So, to me, this does not keep the peace. This breaks trust, which we're trying to build and foster. It also is a public health threat. And I don't think that our students learn it in an environment that feels like a police state. I am very encouraged by the chair of the Education Committee's conversation with the superintendent, Mr. McDonough. But I want more than an indicator. And we do need to play the role of watchdog. I want confirmation that this policy is being walked back. And if it is not being walked back, then we need to have a public hearing so that the school district and the superintendent can hear emphatically from parents and students about what I think is really just an awful, awful idea. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Presley. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to thank and commend my good colleagues from Grove Hall and Dorchester, respectively, for this hearing order. Ask that my name be added. I'm very encouraged to hear that the conversation characterized by Councilor Jackson, the superintendent, seems to not be in favor of this because this is simply an absurd idea. The fact of the matter is, should pepper spray be dispensed in a small confined area like a classroom or a school hallway, many other kids could be the unintended victims of that. And the second fact of the matter is violent incidents and assaults have dropped dramatically in the city of Boston in our public schools. Credit must go to the teachers and the Boston Public School Police for doing a very difficult and important job, but this seems to add nothing to the equation. It's unnecessary, and again, I think it's absurd, so I'm encouraged to hear that it seems to have little legs going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor O'Malley. Please add Councilor O'Malley's name, add Councilor LaMartina's name, Councilor Wu's name. Please add my name. Councilor Jens.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to thank our 2 colleagues for their vigilance. I think the notion of having pepper spray used on our children is repugnant to everyone. And quite frankly, we have a system that's been around for decades and centuries. And I think that we can handle the issue of discipline without introducing this substance, which tends to not only create the air of a police state, but almost militarizing some of our school police officers. I don't think it's appropriate. I think that it exacerbates a potentially hostile environment for some individuals who are having struggles even before they get into schools. So I ask that my name be added, and I want to commend my two colleagues for sponsoring this and look forward to the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Docket 1703 will be assigned to the Committee on Education. Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1704, Councilor Jackson and Linehan offer the following order for a hearing to discuss the Long Island Bridge closure impact on homelessness and human services.
Councilor Jackson, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. This is an urgent and serious issue. We have some of the most vulnerable people in our city who no longer have the asset that we have at Long Island. My office has been filled with calls and very important issues, such as the fact that it's getting colder in the city of Boston. The winter is upon us, and we do need to have an opportunity to look at the progress. And we know that there is a community meeting that is ahead of us, but I think as a council, we need to really think about the resources that are out there, not only in the short term, but in the midterm and the long term. And I think this also gives us an opportunity to think about the issue of homelessness. And what do we do in the city of Boston? And are we doing all that we can do to make sure that people get permanent housing, make sure that people get the help and care that they deserve, and to make sure that those who are in recovery are taken care of. We do have a mayor who has made a priority of, in particular, issues of recovery and working with the most vulnerable. We need to come together, and this is not a us or them mentality. This is really about the character of our city and what we do to help those folks who are in the most need. It's about partnership, it's about collaboration, and it's about how this council can aid in making sure that, again, these 700 individuals that we're talking about are safe and taken care of and have the resources that they need, but that we have a future-focused plan on actually solving this important issue of those folks who don't have housing and those folks who need the social-emotional support, those folks who continue to need recovery beds. And so I put this forth as really a collaborative approach to how our council can be involved in having this conversation about how we deal with this issue, but the broader issue of homelessness in the city of Boston. Also, how we do deal with the very real impacts that this is actually having on neighborhoods and communities, in particular in the South End and Lower Roxbury, that already shoulder a great deal of the burden relative to health issues and resources. And I would compliment the president on the work that we've done, and also Councilor Murphy on the work that we've done around a lot of these issues in the Newmarket area. We still have to, and also Councilor Wu and Councilor Presley, on how do we make this work, and how do we help those who most need help. So that is why I'm putting it forth. We actually will not have a hearing prior to the community meeting that is actually scheduled, but look forward to having a hearing to really discuss this matter. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Jackson. Councilor Yancey.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, we are very compassionate, this body, with regards to the homeless. And the fact that we no longer have access to Long Island poses some very critical issues for us as policy makers. So I think it's altogether appropriate that we have a hearing. Last Thursday, I was at the pantry in my district with Shirley Shillingsford, who's here. And her program is somehow in jeopardy because of some proposals with regards to housing some of the homeless. That facility was identified on the campus of what used to be the Boston Specialty and Rehab Hospital. That facility is not quite ready. But worse than that, Mr. President, the people who actually live in that area, I think, deserve at least to be consulted, if not informed, of what the city's plans are with regards to placement of people who find themselves in a disastrous situation of not having a home. So I would like to commend you and Councilor Jackson and have my name added, and look forward to an expeditious hearing on this topic.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. Please add Councilor Yancey's name, Councilor Baker's name, Councilor Flaherty's name, Councilor Lamartina's name, Councilor McCarthy, Councilor Murphy, and Councilor Zake. I'm sorry, Councilor O'Malley and Councilor Siomo. And Councilor Presley. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Councilor Wu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank the co-sponsors for bringing this issue before the council as well, and also Councilors Baker and Presley for co-sponsoring the community meeting November 12th, right, at the Blackstone Community Center in the South End. I had the opportunity to go out to Long Island a few months ago with Councilor Zacom when we were new and looking just to get a sense of the services that were out there. So we've seen firsthand both the number of people that the island had been serving as well as the scope of services provided, wide range of programs being offered. And since the closure and since the relocation of many of the individuals experiencing homelessness to the South End, my home neighborhood has been abuzz with questions. And I just want to make clear that the questions that I've been getting at my office and at the grocery store and all around have not been protests of why are these people in our neighborhood? Nothing like that. People are genuinely concerned about the conditions. They are wanting to know what the long-term plan is. They are volunteers at the Pine Street Inn and many of the other agencies that are in the South End. So looking forward to both the community meeting and the hearing to make sure that we are having a full conversation about this. Homelessness is certainly a citywide issue, as is now the ripple effects of asking other agencies to take on many of the folks that had been receiving services on the island. So please add my name. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wu. Please add Councilor Wu's name. Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to Councilor Jackson and you for bringing this important issue up. As I read through the order, one person was missing, which is the Boston Public Works Department. The bridge is Boston Public Works Department. As I spoke a couple weeks ago about question 1, which we lost, but there's going to be a lot of money needed to be put into that bridge. And as we discuss the Health and Human Services aspect, which is obviously of the utmost importance, I suggest that the Boston Public Works Department be involved as well, so we can get at least a timetable of repairs or future thoughts of how exactly they're going to connect the island to the mainland. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Docket 1704 will be assigned to the Committee on Healthy Women, Families, and Communities. Personnel orders, Madam Clerk.
Docket number 1705, Councilor Linehan for Councilor Wu.
Councilor Wu moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1705. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1705 has been passed.
Docket number 1706, Councilor Linehan.
Councilor Wu moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1706. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1706 has been passed.
Docket number 1707, Councilor Linehan.
Councilor Siomo moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1707. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1707 has passed.
Docket number 1708, Councilor Linehan.
Councilor Presley moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1708. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1708 has passed.
Docket number 1709, Councilor Linehan.
Councilor Presley moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1709. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1709 has passed.
Docket number 1710, Councilor Linehan.
Councilor Presley moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1710. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1710 has passed.
Docket number 1711, Councilor Linehan.
Councilor Siomo moves suspension of the rules and passage of docket 1711. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it. Docket 1711 has passed. I am informed by the clerk that there are no late file matters at this time. At this time, anyone wanting to remove a matter from the green sheets, please signal. Councilor Siomo.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 2 of the green sheets, under assigned for further action, docket 0180.
Madam Clerk, would you please read that?
Page 2 of the green sheet, docket number 14-180 was assigned on October 22nd, 2014, order for the construction of a high school in Mattapan. This matter has received its first reading and is being brought to the floor for its second reading.
Councilor Siomo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify, the last vote we took for the first reading was based on my committee report, which recommended not to support the building of Mattapan High. So voting yes the last time supported my position of not funding it. This time, if you support Mattapan High, you will be voting yes. If you oppose Mattapan High's funding, you will vote no. Just want to make sure everybody's clear.
Okay. I'll clarify that at the end of discussion. Councilor Yancey, you have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. President, I'd like to request a 1-minute recess.
Sure.
If that's possible.
1 minute recess. Anybody want up here? Councilor
See all of those.
So we have the second reading on the matter in front of us. Councilor Yancey.
Mr. President, I'd like to move that we table this until the next council meeting.
Council moves to have this matter tabled. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Nay.
I doubt the vote, Mr. President.
Doubt the vote. So let me clarification on the vote. You are voting whether to table the matter or not. He's asking to table the matter. A yes vote is that you agree with tabling the matter. A no vote is that you do not agree to table the matter and you want the vote to occur on the second reading. Do I need to explain that again? Okay.
With me on tape.
Councilor Yancey has moved and had a second on whether to table this matter. That means it will not be up for a vote. If you vote yes, then you agree with Councilor Yancey to table the matter at this time. If you vote no, you don't agree with Councilor Yancey to table this matter, and we will have a vote afterwards, depending upon the vote. Okay? Do you have it? Madam Clerk.
Vote. Go vote for it.
No, we haven't,
On table the matter. So.
is there, I don't want to vote until all councilors left.
This is
If you vote yes, then you vote to table the matter. And that means it will not receive a second reading vote. If you vote no, that means you do not support it being tabled. And therefore, that means you would like to see it come to a vote here today. Madam Clerk.
Councilor Baker. Councilor Baker, no. Councilor Siomo. Councilor Siomo, no. Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Flaherty, yes. Councilor Jackson. Yes. Councilor Jackson, yes. Councilor LaMartina. Councilor LaMartina, no. Councilor Linehan.
No.
Councilor Linehan, no. Councilor McCarthy. Councilor McCarthy, yes. Councilor Murphy. Councilor Murphy, yes. Councilor O'Malley. Councilor O'Malley, yes. Councilor Presley. Councilor Presley, yes. Councilor Wu. Councilor Wu, yes. Councilor Yancey.
Yes.
Councilor Yancey, yes. And Councilor Zachem. Councilor Zachem, yes. There are 9 votes in the affirmative, 4 votes.
The matter has been tabled.
Mr. President, unanimous consent to make a statement?
Not at this time, Councilor Yancey.
Okay.
There are 5 late file matters which, in absence of objection, will be added to the consent agenda. Seeing, hearing no objections, the matters are added. The chair moves adoption of the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The consent agenda is adopted. Councilor Yancey. Okay. Councilor Flaherty.
Thank you, Mr.
For what
President.
purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent to make a statement.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I want to rise to ask my colleagues and for those in attendance and those watching at home, on behalf of Councilor Baker and I, to lend your prayers to a dear friend of mine, my Vietnamese coordinator, Chang Lee, who's also a constituent of and neighbor of Councilor Baker. So, unfortunately, last evening, while working in his store in an effort to protect his wife and child, there was an armed robbery and he was shot. So he underwent emergency surgery. He's recovering in the Boston Medical Center, but this guy's a great city guy, runs a local business, and has been a tremendous help and support to me in the Vietnamese community in Dorchester, along with Councilor Baker. So just asking everyone for their thoughts and prayers for him and also for his family, who actually witnessed this horrific crime last night. On a good note, spoke to our commissioner. There was a quick apprehension due to the quick and thorough work of our Boston Police Department, as well as an initial description that was given to them by his son, who made a quick observation before they called 911. So again, just please keep Chang Lee and his family in your thoughts and prayers, and hope for a full and speedy recovery. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. I know that you asked prior to Councilor Yancey, would you like to make rise? For what purpose?
First is an announcement. Our son Sharif and his wife Kim gave birth to a child during Election Day, so I'm a grandfather for the 6th time.
Caught up.
So caught up. So we had sleepless night a little bit yesterday when we got the news, but not for the same reason that many others had sleepless nights last night because of the election. Well, secondly, Mr. President, I wanted to thank my colleagues for tabling the matter that we just tabled. Unfortunately, we did have quite a few people from the community come out in support of the high school, and I wanted an opportunity to explain to them what just happened. I would love for us to have a unanimous vote supporting this high school. There's no question that we need it. And hopefully in the next 2 weeks, I can persuade those of you who aren't sold on the idea to come around, because our children need it. It's likely that if this body doesn't take action, that we're going to lose the 14 acres of land. There's no question about that in my mind. I know who's after it right now. And I also would like the opportunity to get the administration on board, because during the campaign he said he supported building the high school, and we want to give them the opportunity to do this. But had we taken that vote today, there's some question as to whether or not the matter would have passed, quite candidly. And again, unfortunately, the several ministers were here today, including Reverend Dickerson and Reverend Coulter. Former City Councilor Chuck Turner is here. This proposal has been supported by the NAACP, the Boston Teachers Union, former and current headmasters of the Boston Public Schools. So, Mr. President, hopefully the additional time will allow me to persuade even you to come on board. So thank you so much to my colleagues for the vote, and hopefully the next time it comes up, it will be a unanimous vote in support of building Boston's first new high school since 1979. Our students, all of our students for all neighborhoods, deserve to have a first-class facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Yancey. I'd ask all guests and all members to please rise as the council prepares to adjourn in today's meeting in memory of the following individuals. For the council as a whole, Mayor Thomas M. Menino and former City Councilor John Sear. For Councilor Siomo, Ideal Iggy Salvucci. For the Chair and Councilor Flaherty, Patrick P.J. Donovan, Mary Ma. For Councilor O'Malley, Christine Curran. And for Councilor Baker, Michaela Hanscom. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. The chair moves that when the council adjourns today, it does so in memory of the aforementioned individuals and is scheduled to meet again on Wednesday, November 19th, 2014 at 12 o'clock noon. All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. The ayes have it and the council is so adjourned. Thank you. Here you go.